Hi, everyone. This is Raquel.
Hi, and this is Jennifer.
Welcome to Madness Cafe.
This is a feminist podcast where we talk about women's issues, politics, and health and wellness.
And where those issues intersect. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we are going to talk about motherhood, yes or no. Do you have kids? Do you not have kids? Why yes? Why no? There's a whole lot of articles out there written from both sides of the debate and both sides of the conundrum that people find themselves in, both men and women. So I'm going to link to some of those in the show notes, but I'm not going to reference them specifically. I think the articles do such a great job of going into sort of the human aspect of it that I think just presenting stats without presenting the human side would be a bit disingenuous. So I will link to those articles in the show notes, but there's a lot of really, really good articles out there, and not just with people saying that they know for sure one way or the other, but there's a lot of people who just aren't sure. The whole turmoil that goes into not being certain. So I'll link to those. Jennifer and I are going to start by talking about our own situations. I think those of you who have been listening, or those of you who know Jennifer and I personally, know that Jennifer has 2 daughters. I have no children. We'll go from there.
Your intro was amazing. And what it made me think of, you used the word debate, and I'm thinking, why is it a debate? It's nobody's business but your own business if you want to have kids or not, right?
Right.
So debate is such a, mind your own business, people.
Right. Yes. And sadly, it does become a debate, and people do think it's their business, which is very frustrating, especially for somebody who doesn't want kids. It's always been sort of a frustrating thing for me. So,
well, that's interesting. I'm definitely interested in hearing your perspective on that, because I have never thought of it as a debate, but probably because I had kids, people were probably not going after me. They were like, you're doing the status quo. You're okay in our book, so we're not going to go after you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you, Raquel, are a vessel for having babies that didn't fill that vessel.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
my
biology did not fulfill its destiny.
Like that's a woman's worth.
Yeah.
Our worth is to have kids, and that's it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. There are people who feel that if a woman doesn't have a child, then she has lost some value, which I think is
a crock of shit.
Yeah, yes, crock of shit is a much more colorful way of putting it, but yes,
it's a crock of shit.
It is.
All right. So I'll talk about my own. Growing up, I didn't think I wanted to have kids. I used to tell, in high school, the person that I was dating, I used to tell him all the time, I don't want to have kids. And I don't think that was necessarily 100% true, just like how I tell everyone I'm an atheist. I don't think that's 100% true either. But what I did know at that time is that I wanted some time for myself. I wanted to travel. I wanted to go to college. I wanted to see the world. And I knew what a tremendous commitment raising children would be. And I guess what I meant at the time is I don't want to have kids right now.
Right.
Which is why I went to Planned Parenthood and got on birth control, by the way.
Good.
Yeah, that was a celebration moment for me. Time to have some sex. Woo! Anyway. And then, funny enough, when I did decide I wanted to have kids, it was right before I had kids. My biological clock just went ticket. Let's have some kids.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So how did that manifest? Like, because my biological clock, I think, just doesn't have batteries in it. So, so when you say that yours just was like going all like, in hyper mode, like what does go into that a little bit more, please?
Yeah, well, people are going to think this is funny a little bit. At least I do. In retrospect, probably not funny at the moment. But when I met my ex-husband, first thing he did when I met him is he would like touch his heart and thump on it when I walked by. That was like how we met. But I saw him and I was like, babies. Really? I seriously 100% was drawn to him to make babies. No doubt in my mind. And when we started dating, we hadn't been dating very long, maybe a couple months. And I actually said to him, I was like, do you want to have a baby? And he was like, do I want to have a baby? He's also a little bit younger than me. He's about 7 years younger than me.
Okay.
I was approaching 30 and he was what, like 23? He was a youngster.
A youngster.
So you might see me as a cougar. Anyway, I'm not really a cougar. Mostly I date men that are older than me, but for whatever reason, when I saw him, my biological clock was just like, I just wanted to make babies. And he said yes. And as we were dating, we just tried to make a baby. We barely knew each other. Would not recommend this approach for most people. It's probably not the wisest way to create a family. Although that being said, I love my family, including my ex-husband, very, very, very much.
Mhm.
So it worked for us.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So how about you?
You know, I have never been one of those women who's like, oh, I just want to be a mom, and I want to feel a life grow inside. Like, that has never ever been my thing, ever. And like, I remember being a kid, and I don't know, some friend, maybe this is just what little girls did, but they would, you play with baby dolls and you pick out names and blah, blah, blah. And I would get bored with the little baby dolls and my Barbies and all that stuff. And, I'd end up giving them like haircuts, which, made them look like they were not doing well. So I just would get bored. And when I would, quote unquote, pick out baby names, I was just saying names that I liked. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was like, I like that name. I like that name. Not, I'm going to have a child and name it that. Like, that's never my thing.
I was going to name my baby boy after Harrison Ford. I was going to name him Little Harrison, and no one was allowed to call him Harry, by the way.
There you go.
But I didn't have a boy.
You didn't have a boy.
No Harrison.
That just wasn't my thing. And I never thought, oh, I'm going to be a mom.
So what kind of things do people approach with and debate in your life? What do they say is not okay about in that decision?
God, there's so many misconceptions about it. Like, people, I tend to be very nurturing with my friends, or at least I like to think so.
I can see that.
So people mistake that and think, oh, you'd be a great mom. Well, thank you. But that's not the point. I'm nurturing to my friends. I don't want to have a child. I don't want to have that effect on a young, moldable mind. Do I love my friends' kids? Absolutely. Do I see a kid, people that I work with, they bring their kids in. I'm like, hey, so, the kids are great, whatever, have good conversations, done, right? They go home, I go home, we go to our respective corners, everything's great. But some people, when I say that I don't want kids, they misunderstand that and they think Raquel hates kids.
No,
I don't know. Seriously, Seriously, people have said that to me. Even people that I'm friends with, that I've known for years, they'll just sort of flippantly go, oh, that's right, Raquel, you don't like kids. No, I don't dislike them. I don't want to have them. And I'm not crazy about ill-behaved children. I'll go ahead and put that out there, because, if you're going to let your child just run wild, I'm not going to be real happy about that. I mean, I'll just admit that right up front. Like, I was out to dinner on Friday, and this couple is sitting there, they have their 2 young children, and their kids are literally like running wild, climbing on crap, at the restaurant. And I'm like, and the parents are doing nothing. And I'm like, this isn't McDonald's with like the playground. Like, please teach your kids to behave.
Yeah. Remember when we were talking to Michigan Date Ideas and I said, I don't like to take my kids to restaurants? That is why, because it's not a fun experience for the parents. Mm-hmm. Well, I want to go to the restaurant and enjoy my meal too.
Well, these parents were just completely ignoring that their kids were off running wild. And I'm like, if you want to have a meal without your child, get a babysitter. Yeah. Or, whatever. Like, I don't know.
Easier said than done sometimes.
Well, true. And I know there's a lot of people who are going to be like, oh, Raquel, you don't know, you've never had kids. Well, no, I know. I've not ever had kids. That was a personal choice.
Okay, there's some truth to that. You don't know because you haven't been out to dinner with your kids and they've had a episode or something, and you're trying to have a life and keep them under control, and this didn't go well. You haven't had to experience that. It is tough. It sucks.
Yeah.
And at the same point, you also want to go out to dinner and enjoy yourself without all of that happening as well.
Yeah. And like, it's one thing if, so if a parent is with their kid and they're clearly trying to calm the kid down, and kid's just having a meltdown or whatever, and they're just like, oh God, please calm down. They're trying. Okay, I get that. Like, I do have empathy. I'm not a monster, but if
So you don't like kids, Raquel. So
yeah. Oh, I forgot. But like in this situation where those kids were just off running wild and the parents are just like, no, I'm not here to babysit your child because I don't know you. And that's not why I came out to dinner. And if your child gets hurt, I'm going to feel awful that kid is hurt. And I'm going to be mad at you for not keeping your child from getting hurt. But I've also gotten a lot of crap or crap is the wrong word. Pressure is a better word, from family.
I could see that.
I've gotten pressure from family. Like my brother is 2.5 years younger than me, and my brother's married. He has, a son and stepkids and, grandkids and the whole thing. So he got married before I did. Obviously I'm not married. So, but he did all these things and I have not, but he did them at a younger age than I would have had I been in control of any of that.
Yeah, but great. Good for him. And
well, yeah. But when I would talk to my family about not wanting kids, my brother would look at me and say, and I'm not kidding, he said these words out of his mouth. He's like, you're just going through a phase. Okay, A, no, I'm not. B, what? Shut the, what? No, like it just really upset me so bad. And then it took me a while to convince my mom. Like my mom would be like, oh, baby, you'll change your mind. Or, oh, when you get older or when you meet. And I go, Ma, no, okay, stop. And it got to be a lot of pressure from her. This was like right after college.
Yeah.
It got to the point where I said, Ma, if you can't stop talking about this, if you can't respect my decision on this, then we just need to not talk for a little while. And we didn't. There were months where we didn't talk.
All stemming from the fact that you didn't want to have children?
Yes. And the fact that she wasn't respecting that decision. She didn't think I was serious. And so she was, really harping on it.
Yeah.
And so, she came around and she realized, oh, Raquel's serious about this. Right. And then several years down the line, I met the guy that I started dating and lived with. We were together for 5 years. And well, that just sent mom on another just kind of like crazy train. Raquel's gotta have babies. Look. And I was like, no, Ma, no. Just because we are living together and talking about marriage does not mean there will be babies.
Oh my gosh, I have like 100 questions.
Yes.
So question number 1, did he have children?
No.
Okay, so there were no.
And he did not want kids either. Okay. And I've always been very upfront in dating that I do not want children. I've always been
good
upfront.
Because I feel like that is a really important factor to consider in the dating world. Okay, question number 2 that comes to mind. I don't think there's any morality issue with you wanting to have children or not wanting to have children. I think women can do whatever they want to do in that regard. I am curious as to what would you say are the 2 top reasons why you don't want to have children?
Partly, I'll go with, okay, they're kind of all tied in together, but one of them is my struggles with body image and body loathing. I'll be upfront about that.
Oh my God, totally get it.
Even when I was thin, I mean, we've talked about this on the show before. I thought like body dysmorphia is real. I have not been clinically diagnosed, but I've done enough reading and I've been in therapy long enough to know that I'm pretty sure I have had body dysmorphia pretty much since maybe like age 12. And so I was so afraid that, getting pregnant, I'd get really big, my body would turn into something that I didn't recognize, that it would feel awful, and that I would then resent the child for having done all of that to my body. Needless to say, I have not had kids, but I have ruined my own body. My body now.
Okay, strike that right there. You have not ruined your own body.
Okay, I take that back. My body is not at a place where I want it to be.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Probably every single person listening to this podcast, male, female, younger, older, probably every single one can relate to that.
That is
My
very
body's not exactly where I want it to be.
That is very true.
But you have not ruined your body.
I was being a bit flip. So, or maybe it was just a Freudian slip, whatevs. So yeah, so I was afraid that I would see this child, and instead of seeing, oh, this lovely bundle of, I'd be like, oh, that's the thing that, did all those things to my body. Do you know what I mean? And plus I would have even more issues. And so I just thought, duh.
Oh, I totally get that one.
But the biggest one for me is encapsulate it with basically one word: freedom.
And
Totally
get that one too.
But there's so many facets to that for me. Like growing up, had financial issues, more often than not when I was growing up. Like it always seemed like there just wasn't enough of anything ever.
Mm-hmm.
I thought when I get older and I make my own money, I'll be able to do what I want to do. I wanted to have the freedom to enjoy that. And I felt like if I had kids, I wouldn't be able to enjoy that.
Well, they're damn expensive.
Yeah, they're expensive. I wouldn't be able to just like pick up and go whenever I wanted. I feel like in some ways growing up, I didn't have maybe sort of the freedom and maybe sort of carefree nature that you should have as a kid. And
Raquel,
so I thought, as I get older, I want to have that.
Did you take care of yourself as a child?
To some extent, yeah.
I get that 100%.
Yeah.
100%. I get that. I have struggled with both of those issues.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about the body issue, I don't know if everyone knows this, but I lost my first child. She died when I was 38 weeks pregnant. We had 2 weeks till her due date.
Oh my goodness.
And
I'm sorry.
Thank you. It was a long time ago. She'd be 22. I can't believe that. She'd be 22 years old. The doctors were like, don't get pregnant right away. Well, I'm stubborn as all get out. And I talked to my ex-husband and I said, I really want to have a baby. So let's just go for it. And he's like, okay, let's go for it. So we were pregnant immediately again. So I had 2 back-to-back pregnancies. I gained so much weight from going from one pregnancy to the next pregnancy without breastfeeding, without having a child. I was the heaviest that I've ever been in my life, the heaviest. And when I look back at pictures, sometimes I'm like, it's not very attractive. So I get what you're saying about the body image. I get how our body dysmorphia can get in our way of certain things. And I have hated my body. This cancer that I have in my uterus has made me realize how much I have not loved my body and how much my body deserved to be loved. Mm-hmm. And then the second thing that you talked about, that freedom thing, that's a big one for me, because I think my kids are my biggest blessing, my biggest joy. They bring me joy. They open up these avenues for me. And I am really conscious parenting, about really, okay, I'm not perfect and I made a lot of freaking mistakes, but I have been really thinking through the things that I do with my kids. Yeah. And at the same time, I also know it was a choice to give up some freedom to do that. So I know what you're saying about freedom. I get that 100%. And I don't think that every woman has to give up her freedom to be a mother. But I think if you are a mother, you do give up some freedom. It's just, if you don't give up some freedom to be a mother, you may not be paying enough attention to your children. That may sound harsh, but I feel in some ways that happened with my own mother. Yeah. Sometimes your kids got to come first. Yeah. No, I totally get that. Yeah. I think with my mom, there were a lot of issues. I mean, my mom worked as well, and she was very dedicated to her work. In fact, she, like a lot of people and like myself for the longest time, defined herself by her job. Same. Right.
it was almost like my mom was the dad. Do you know what I mean? Like, she went off, she worked, whatever. And then like my grandma and my aunts they did all the cooking and they cleaned the house and looked after me and my brother and, that kind of stuff. That was kind of a different dynamic. So
but thank God your mom had that support.
Oh yeah.
I was just talking to my own daughter about the inequality of the workload, like the fact that we need feminism because so many reasons, but one of the reasons is I wanted to work. I wanted to be out in the world.
Yeah.
And then some women just absolutely have to work.
Yes.
But at the same point, as a woman in the household, probably your mother experienced this, my mother experienced this. Yes, we're out working a full-time job, 40 plus hours a week. And yet the entire household duties, now some men take on more than others, so I'm not slamming every man here. Dishes, bedtime, reading, cooking, cleaning, scheduling freaking doctor's appointments. Like, could a man schedule a goddamn doctor's appointment for someone in the family or someone sick? Get them to the, oh my God, I'm ranting.
No, but I totally agree with you though. And I mean, because I see it in friends of mine who are married and have kids. You see it on TV shows, you see it in movies, if a kid is sick, who does the school always call? The mom. Who has the mom.
How many sick days do I have that I can call in for versus how many sick days does my spouse have that they can call in for, but who calls in and uses their sick day first?
Exactly.
And I took my, this is bad. I took my sick kid to work with me several times and they slept under my desk at work on a sleeping bag.
Yeah.
I took my kid to work when she had head lice. And, and the guy I was working with, he was like, Jennifer, go home. What are you trying to do? I felt so guilty to miss work. I felt like I was putting people out, and he's like, go home. Go home. I hope that's something we have learned from COVID is that
I think we have. I hope.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Go home, take care of yourself, take care of your family, but who does that fall on?
It always falls on the mom.
I'm really not bad mouthing men. I love men, but men, you have not taken on your fair share of the workload. You have not.
Yeah. I mean, just societally, it hasn't changed yet. I mean, there's a shift.
Do you as a man even know the number to the doctor for where you would get that appointment? Do you know the dentist? Do you know the schedule? Oh my God, I'm bad mouthing so bad right now.
Okay. So we're gonna calm down that rant just a little bit. Because I do have questions. You said that when you saw your ex-husband, you were like, yeah, babies. Was there ever any doubt in your, really?
No doubt whatsoever. I think even when I was in high school and I was telling the person that I was dating that I didn't want to be a mom, what I really meant was, I don't want to be a mom right now. I have some stuff to do. And I actually think that's one of the smartest decisions I ever made personally. My first daughter wasn't born until I was 31, and my second daughter wasn't born until I was almost 38 years old.
Right.
I did all kinds of stuff. I was in the Peace Corps. I traveled. I lived in Florida for a while. I did all kinds of junk jobs. I went to the clubs. I partied. I did the things I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I know other people that had kids when they were really young.
Yeah.
And it was a way different thing where they still wanted to go out with their friends and they wanted to get babysitters and they felt like they were missing something. By the time my kids were born, I didn't want to go to the clubs. I wasn't missing anything.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say that I was kind of unprepared for is there are things that I like to do. One in particular, I love to go camping, and neither of my kids like camping. And so I tried to take them out several times. I tried to do some fun things and they just weren't into it. And so for many years, that's something I just kind of had to put on the back burner, because what I realized is when you want to connect with your kids, you do the activities that they want to do.
Right.
You find your connection and your commitment there, even though I really wanted to go camping.
Yeah.
Both of my kids are afraid of water. I'm like a freaking fish.
Well, right. Exactly. Knowing what you know now, is there anything that you would have done differently?
That's such a loaded question. Okay, no, because if I did anything differently, I wouldn't have the children that I have, and I'm madly and deeply in love with my kids.
Your daughters are amazing. I have not met them specifically yet, but hearing you talk about them and seeing them on social media, and like you've done a great job with your girls, for sure.
Madly and deeply in love with them because they're beautiful human beings. And even if they weren't, I assume that I would be madly and deeply in love with my own children.
Right.
However, if I had advice to give others, I think like really working on a marriage before you bring children into it is probably a good route to go on. I love the children's father, and I will always love him. He's a good man. We were not a good married couple.
Okay.
We did not know how to support each other. We didn't know each other for diddly, really, when we decided to make these babies. I know it's a crazy story. It is kind of my personality trait. I think when I look around at people who have, again, I'm going to go back to Michigan Date Ideas.
Yeah.
They met each other. They went to couples counseling. They learned how to have an argument together, how to, maybe not necessarily an argument, maybe that's the wrong word.
Well,
they learned how to disagree and have a conversation around it. Yeah. They learned how to live with one another, and then they had children. And I really believe that nuclear family, the mom, the dad, the kids, is not necessary. However, it is a nice little package.
Yeah. You know? Yeah.
I would have liked to give my kids that package. I would have liked to give.
You did give it to them for a little while, No?
Not very long. Pablo and I were married for 7 years. Gabby was born in our 7th year of marriage. We were divorcing as Gabby was being born.
Oh, okay.
So not really. We really didn't. What we did do is here's where we had a really great marriage.
Okay.
We co-parented these kids separately, but well together. We talked about things. When we made decisions, we talked about them. We fed them the same food at both houses. We had the same kind of way to talk to our kids at both houses. We consulted each other when we made a decision. I remember the first time Pablo was trying to date someone, he called me and he said, "How do you introduce someone to the children?" We had open discussions about our kids and what was the best way to parent them.
That is
amazing. So in that regard, we did that really well.
That is amazing, because it can be really difficult for separated parents to co-parent.
Yeah.
Like, my own parents did not co-parent. Once my parents were divorced, as far as my dad was concerned, he was out of the picture. Like, he was done. It was just, all right, I'm out. And so
I'm so sorry, Raquel, because that is such a terrible experience for a child.
It is. And my mom, God bless her, she never said an unkind word about our father in front of me and my brother.
Good for her.
And if we said anything, oh man, we would get in big trouble, right?
Yeah.
So had my father been willing to actually co-parent, I think things would have been much, much, much different for me and my brother in a myriad of ways. That's something that I'm seeing more of, is that when people who have children divorced, they're making a concerted effort of still acting as a unit for the children. I haven't done any like actual research on this. I mean, I have friends who have that situation, and I see that with them, and I'm always amazed that they can do it, because I mean, that was another one of my reasons for not wanting to have kids, was when I break up with somebody or when they break up with me, I don't want to see them. anymore. Like, I don't wish the guy ill, but I don't really want to see him. I'm just like, okay, those memories are gone. Like, that person doesn't exist anymore. But if I had had a child with somebody, I would be forever connected to that person. And that would have been so thoroughly hurtful for me.
So that is a message for people listening to this podcast or watching. Be careful who you choose to have children with, because if you have children, you are forever connected through your children, through your grandchildren, through your legacy, through your life. And in that regard, I picked a very good father for my children.
Yes, you did.
I look back a little bit with regret, wishing that I had known how to communicate better when we were married, so that maybe we could have tried to make a better go of it.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same point, I'm really happy that my kids have a father who is committed and loves them. And, you know, he's from Mexico. He could have taken off. When we lost our first child, he could have taken off. He didn't do that. When we had our babies, he could have taken off. When we got divorced, he could have taken off. He chose not to do that because he loves his kids.
Wow.
So to me, that's huge. And that's a man to me.
Yeah.
That's what a man does. That being said, conscious parenting, I think, is where it's at. We have all gone through an evolution. We all were parented a certain way, and then we made some changes, and then we parented another way. There are some things in being parented that are hurtful. Like, I don't know if you experienced this with your mom being divorced, but my mother was married 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that she did, my mom chose her husbands, in my eyes, over her children.
Okay.
And I think partly it's sort of generational. They were supposed to be married. They were supposed to have this. The man was supposed to be the head of the house.
Yeah.
Another reason why I think we need feminism. I want to be equal with the man of the house. I don't want to be superior or inferior. I want to be equal. Right. And I will settle for no less.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's the way that it should be. Right.
But we're getting off track.
Yeah.
This is about to have or not to have children.
My mom did not remarry after our parents split up. She did have, I mean, at separate times, had 2 very serious long-term relationships.
Did they live with you?
No. Neither one of them lived with us. The first one, the man had 2 children, and they were older than me and my brother. And I remember feeling very close to them, to the 2 kids. And I remember feeling very close to him. And he asked my mom to marry him, and my mom said no.
Ooh.
And then the second relationship, long-term relationship, that man asked my mom to marry him as well. And she said no again. I asked my mom about this as an adult. I think I was in college or like right after college. And I was like, well, what about those 2 guys? I mean, those were really serious relationships for you. They both asked you to marry them, right? Like, I think I seem to remember that. And she's like, yeah, they did. And I was like, well, why didn't you remarry? She's like, I don't think I'm marriage. Like, that's not the institution for me, I think is what she said. Yeah. So there wasn't that situation of having somebody come in that was then placed on a pedestal above me and my brother.
Yeah. And maybe she did that on purpose for you guys.
Maybe, but I think it really was just that she just didn't want to get remarried. Yeah. I just think she thought, you know, I got married. I have my 2 kids, check, you know, like check that off the list, got married. Okay, done. Okay.
So you asked me, did I ever regret having kids? Did you ever regret not having kids?
No. And I am very certain in that. I have talked obviously about dealing with anxiety and depression. I would hate to have sort of passed that on to another being. And, you know, and I know that there's still some debate as to whether or not it's hereditary, but regardless of whether it's hereditary, I have gone through periods of depression where just getting myself out of bed is an accomplishment. Had there been a child or children, that would have had a horrible impact on them. And I don't ever want to do that to a young, growing, developing mind like that. That would break my heart to know that I had made some child feel whatever that would make them feel.
What do you think about the topic of environmental impacts on the decision to have children? Because we are looking at, a lot of people think climate change isn't a real issue, but I firmly believe climate change is a big issue.
Yeah.
What about making decision to bring children into this world when we don't even know if our world is secure?
Well, that's yeah, I get that. And that's another that specifically didn't play into my decision, but I do get it when people say that that plays into theirs, because the planet is in a really messed up place right now. Another way that that kind of comes into play for me in a slightly different way is because people have also said to me, well, what if you get pregnant? And I'm like, well, I'm pro-choice. I would have an abortion. They're like, oh, but it's no, I don't need. They're like, oh, just give it up for adoption. And I'm like, well, no. Okay, I don't want to be a breeder. B, and I've said that, I screamed that in a law school class one time. So
Good for you.
yeah, so anybody who's listening,
I don't want to be a breeder. I
me,
am a breeder, but Raquel doesn't want to be a breeder.
yes, I did not
And
want to.
both are okay.
Yeah, but but the thing is, you're not a breeder, you're a mom. Do you know what I mean? You weren't just anyway, that could get into a whole other mess.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Because I didn't have to have the baby to give it up. Okay.
Right. And I felt like that has a whole other host of issues. Like that kid will then feel like, it wasn't wanted or loved by its birth mom. And I don't want to make anybody feel,
or it was truly loved, and that's why the mom gave it up.
Right, exactly. But I was like, I don't want to make anybody feel bad. And there are so many kids already who need good homes.
I think about that all the time.
I don't need to add to it.
Yeah, I think about that all the time. How many kids are out there suffering?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Raquel, this is a big question.
Okay.
We're a feminist podcast. We talk about political issues. You brought up the word abortion.
Yep.
Oh my God. Yeah. How do you feel about all this shit that's going on in Texas?
Oh, I am so pissed off about what's going on in Texas and Mississippi and, various other states. Not just what's going on right now, but what's been going on for the last, basically since Roe was decided, pisses me off. And especially with this Texas thing of basically turning regular citizens into vigilantes. Like, hey, we're going to put a bounty on this person's head. If you turn in somebody who's doing this, who's aiding and abetting, blah, 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 you'll get $10,000.
That's crazy.
Okay. That is
insanity.
Is ridiculous. It makes me sick to my stomach. It makes me angry in ways that
but why? What's the root of it? Why are they doing this?
They are doing it to control women.
Why do they want to control women?
Because they think they can. It is, well, and as of now, they are having some control. It is, they won't say it's an issue of control, but it is. I mean, that's the de facto result of it, is that they are controlling women because they view women as
breeders. You said it. They view women as a vessel.
Yeah.
To breed. We are not full human beings in their eyes. We are made.
We are just made to have babies.
To make babies, nothing else. Well, first of all, they want you to look good, so that you're desirable, so that a man will want you, so he can fill you with his sperm, so that you can make babies and be desirable. But this has been the bane of my existence since I was a young person.
Yeah.
It's been hard for me to acknowledge this.
Okay.
There are men out there that really don't think we're worth anything except what we look like and what our body can do for them.
Yes. Our biology to some is supposed to be our destiny. And which not only is that unfair on its face, it's also unfair to women who can't carry a child. It is a very upsetting thing. And what I think people, it's all about control, and it's all about saying that having a baby is the ultimate in being a woman. That pisses me off. And the fact that making it illegal is not, it's not going to stop it from happening. First off,
No, it's not.
because wealthy women will still be able to get safe abortions.
Oh, they'll just fly somewhere else and have it done.
Exactly. Or they'll know somebody.
The senator's girlfriend will have one just fine.
Exactly. Yeah. Or women who can't afford to just go find somebody to help her out, or who doesn't have those connections, those women will still have abortions too, but they will be unsafe. And the likelihood of them either dying or being severely harmed in some way just skyrocket. I mean, that's what was going on before Roe.
Right. So it doesn't take away the need or the desire or the fact that women are going to still have abortions. They're still going to do it.
Yeah. You're just taking away the ability for it to be done safely. And then people boil it down to, oh, just go ahead and have the baby, and we'll all take care of it
bullshit. They won't even take care of the children that are crossing the border. Exactly. Bull fucking shit.
Well, and not even just talking about the kids who are crossing the border. There are kids here who aren't being cared for.
They don't care. Once you're born, they don't give a shit.
Well, yeah. So that was another thing for me, as I was like, because the people who would say, well, what if you just happen to get pregnant? Well, first off, I was on the pill. The chances that it happened were really low. And when I wasn't in a monogamous relationship, the guy used a condom. And if by chance a pregnancy did still occur, which we all know that's possible, I would have had an abortion. None of these decisions were difficult for me. Like, these were decisions that I already knew in my being, that I didn't want to have children, that if I got pregnant, I would have an abortion. And if I had an abortion, I would know that I was doing it of my own deciding, because I knew that it would be the best decision for me. Thankfully, was living in a time when I wasn't worried that choice was going to be taken away from me at any moment, the way that things feel like right now. Thankfully, right now, I'm postmenopausal. So the chances of me getting pregnant now are very, very slim.
Yeah, but in that world, in that society, you're postmenopausal. I'm not, but my tubes are tied and I have a little bit of cancer in there right now.
Yeah.
So we're both useless. We're useless human beings according to that world. Because neither one of us is going to produce any babies anytime soon.
Yeah.
You know what choice is to me?
Okay, go ahead.
Choice to have a baby or not have a baby, or choose when you're going to have a baby. Mm-hmm. The choice, which I've always believed in, is about the autonomy of a woman, about a woman to be in control of her own destiny, whatever that means for her, in her heart, in her mind, in her vision of what her future will hold or not hold. It's the autonomy. And you take that choice away, and then people are put into desperate situations where they'll do things that they're still going to do, the things that lead to the life that they want to have, but they may put that woman in peril. And to me, it's about autonomy. For whatever reason, this government of Texas, where they're making these laws, doesn't want women to be autonomous. They don't want us to have choice over our own body. They don't want us to be able to decide to be a mother or not be a mother, or when do I want to be a mother? And if I find myself pregnant before I'm wanting to be a mother, it is my choice to terminate that pregnancy. And I don't have to be raped in order to do that. And I don't have to be held at gunpoint. I could have had sex with someone I love and I could still choose to have an abortion.
Yeah.
And I think that's the hardest thing for people to swallow, is that we as women get to have choice over our own destiny. We get to choose, do we want to be mothers or not to be mothers? And I say that to some extent because I do know some women who would love to be mothers, and that hasn't happened for them. And I hold them in my heart too, because that is also a very hurtful and tough situation when you want to
Yeah.
be a mother and your body doesn't cooperate.
Right, right. One thing that I was thinking about when I was preparing for today was we're at an age where,
It doesn't matter anymore.
well, no, that's, that's not what I was going to say. No, we're at an age where people just assume that we have kids, right?
Oh, well, see,
Um,
I don't feel that because I'm not in the same position that you're in.
okay, well, yeah, okay, this is probably a good point to bring up. I get that question all the time from random people that it should not have been even part of the conversation. Like I've been asked,
Oh, do you have kids?
I'm
That
like,
question?
yeah. And I'm like, no. What that brings up for me a lot of times is a couple of things. First, if I had kids, they would have come up in conversation because people talk about their kids, right? They come up just naturally and organically in a conversation, right? So if I don't bring up children, guess what? I don't have them. B, that's a dangerous question to ask people because what if I were like what you were just saying? What if I were a woman who
Tried
either
so hard.
had tried so hard and couldn't, or wanted to do, IVF or adopt or whatever, but couldn't because that crap's expensive,
And it
or
doesn't always work.
yeah, and it doesn't always work. Or what if I were married to somebody who didn't want kids and would not have kids? So I think people don't realize that that's a very loaded question to say, oh, do you have kids?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, if they did, it would come up in conversation, and you don't need to ask people that because that can be very fraught for someone.
I felt the same thing in high school, except it was, do you have a boyfriend? As women,
Yeah,
people ask us about our relation status and our child status.
yeah,
They very infrequently ask us what we love, what our hobbies are, what we do
yep,
for a living.
yeah,
And I even think what we do for our living maybe shouldn't be asked so much about.
yeah. That's a very good point too. Yeah. I mean, there's just so many questions that people just throw out there and think, oh, this is everybody's business. Well, no, not really. No, it's not everybody's business.
This topic is really timely, and I feel like we could open up a whole nother thing, but I think the choice to have children or not to have children, or the desire to have children and not be able to have children, I think it's just an incredibly big part, probably of a woman's life, maybe of a man's life as well. And there's so many pieces of it. Like, it's
Mhm.
not a simple road. Even in my own story, like, people will ask about kids. In my head, I have 3 daughters. I
Mhm.
lost one, but I
Right,
have 3 daughters.
right.
And I very rarely ever talk about the death of my first child. You're right, Raquel. It's just a very loaded question. Yet we ask people about these things. Do you have a boyfriend? Are you married? Do you have children? And we don't realize the effect that we could be having on that person's psyche at that
Mhm.
moment in time,
Mhm.
and what it means.
I've tried to make a concerted effort not to ask those questions of people. I think it probably started because I was sick of people asking me those questions. So I was like, I don't want to put anybody else on the spot. I started reading more articles where they were talking about couples who were trying to go through IVF or miscarriages or whatever, and then bringing up this is a loaded question for those couples,
Yeah.
or or those single women going through it, or even men who are single and wanted to have a child but either weren't able to adopt for financial reasons or whatever, or didn't have a partner or whatever. I've also stopped asking, oh, well, what do you do? And that's a harder one for me to sort of stop using as an icebreaker. I'm just saying, hey, what do you do? And well, that's a loaded one too. So
Exactly. But is our self-worth once again defined by what we do for a living?
it shouldn't be, but I think it still
It
is.
shouldn't be whether we're in a relationship. It shouldn't be whether we have kids. It shouldn't be whether we're what we do for a living. Our self-worth as I'm learning through therapy,
Yeah.
is just a matter of because we are.
Yeah. Going back to the specifically about the children question, do you think that had you not gotten married, that you still would have had kids as a single mom?
So, so I wasn't married when I approached my then boyfriend about making a baby.
Well, yeah.
He said yes, and we were starting to make a baby. And then I had the moment of
okay,
panic when we were
maybe
pregnant.
not married, but partnered. Maybe that's a better way to say it. I'm sorry. I partnered.
Well, no, this is a
Partnered.
very valid question because once we were pregnant, I was like, oh shit, we better get married
Mhm.
because we need a mother and a father to take care of this baby. So yeah, I did things backwards. I don't recommend that to
Okay.
anyone. When I got pregnant with my second daughter, with Olivia, I knew that there was a chance that I would lose that baby also. And now, after years of learning about medical, I realized that I am very blessed to have two children. It's a miracle, really. It's a
Yeah.
big thing to bring children into this world. When I was pregnant for Olivia, and people were so afraid because we had lost our first child, I knew in my heart almost 100% that she was going to be fine. But
Wow.
I had decided that if she wasn't going to be fine, then I would stop. I would not try to have children, and I would do something else. I would devote my life. I thought maybe I would go to Mexico and teach English as a second language. At that point, I knew where my limit was. And if that didn't work out for me, then I was going to switch gears and do something else. And it would involve travel and the other things that I love.
Right.
I knew that definitively. Even after having lost the baby in the first pregnancy, I wasn't too worried in the second one. I only had a couple of moments of a little bit of fear. Mostly, I just knew she would be okay.
Yeah.
But if I hadn't been married, would I have had children? I mean, people say single parent. I don't feel like a single parent because their father has been completely and utterly involved in their lives.
Right.
I feel like a single human being. I've longed for that connection and that relationship, but I've never really felt like a single parent. I can't answer that question, Raquel.
No, that's okay. That's fair. That's a fair answer. I know a couple of people who have said that as single people that they wanted to have kids and that they would, by age whatever, if I'm not married, I will have a child on my own, blah blah blah.
Yeah, I get that.
I mean, God bless them. I wouldn't have the balls to do that.
I mean, that is a huge endeavor to take on because I have always felt like one of the hidden blessings of being divorced. People laugh at me, but twice a week on a regular basis, my children go to their father's house and I know that they're well cared for and loved, and I get some breathing room.
Good point.
And I also think that sometimes that's better than the unit of the mother, the father, and the kids living together, because I think these parents that live together, I'm like, do they ever have a break? Not that you need a break from your kids, but oh my gosh,
you have to care for yourself. Even the whole thing about if you're on a plane and there's the masks drop down, you put your mask on first before you put your mask on your kid. You have to at least take care of you to some extent so that you can continue to give to your kid.
I remember when I first got divorced and the kids were with their father. In the very beginning, I had no idea what to do with myself. I would go to sleep because I just didn't know how to be alone. And then I took myself out to dinner, and then I took myself to movies. And then before long, I had so much to do. And this is no slam on my kids. I love them. I'd much rather have them be home with me. But at the same point, I looked forward to the moments when they went with their father because then I could do some things that I enjoy doing.
Right.
So like in a way, the divorce life has worked out really well for me.
Well, that's awesome. You chose well.
I was a good father for my kids, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, and not just a good father for your kids, but a good partner for you in parenting your children.
Yeah, but if I look back on it, that's kind of like a crapshoot because I barely knew him. And that's the thing I would say. That's the thing I would say to people. If I had any advice to give, if you want to have children, if you want to have a successful marriage, if you want to have a great relationship, and I'm learning this myself, and I'm actually giving this advice to me as well.
Yeah.
Take a little more time.
Yeah.
Take a little more time. Stop trying to take all the shortcuts. Get to know someone. It takes time.
Very true. Is there anything that I haven't asked you or that we haven't talked about that you want to throw out
About
there?
having kids.
Yeah.
I have never been prouder to be a feminist because the right to choose is so important. The
Mhm.
fact that you, Raquel, get to decide not to be a mother,
Mhm.
that I get to decide in my crazy way to have my biological clock and pick a man and just have children with him. The fact that our young people can decide right now is not the moment I want to have children. I have never been prouder to be a feminist. We women, in a way, used to be sold to the men. We used to
Yeah.
be like, what was our value was like, what number one, what did we look like? But
Mhm.
number two, how much money did our family have? And
Yeah.
could we bring this person up in
How big
status?
was our dowry?
Our dowry.
Mhm.
Our worth was all about what we looked like, what we could produce. I have never been prouder to be a feminist, and I have never been more clear that our work is unfinished. We need to speak up for choice. And it's not just about pro-choice, abortion or not abortion. It's about choice to have children or not have children, choice to be married or not be married, choice who you love,
Mhm.
who you love.
And
You
if
can
and
love.
if you do want children but are having medical issues with either conceiving or carrying or whatever, that you have access to the medical procedures that will make it possible for you to carry your child if that's what you want.
I guess the thing I want to say to men out there, because I love men and I want you to understand that we just want to be equal. We are not infantile. We are not children. Yes, we love the protection, but we don't need to be protected. We need to be stood beside like
Mhm.
full human beings.
Mhm.
And in that regard, I've never been prouder to be a feminist. And I just I'm digging my heels in deeper and deeper. And that's
Mhm.
the only thing I really have to say is I've been really happy with children and I love my children. I am in love with them. And I could have had a really good life if I didn't have children.
Mhm.
I would
Mhm.
have been in love with my own life.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
We are not, our children, our marriages, our jobs, they don't define us. We're full human beings on our own.
Mhm. Yep. I completely agree with you. I feel like as I get older, I become more and more strongly rooted in being a feminist. I agree with you. I mean, our worth is not defined by, it's definitely not defined by our job or our relationship status, but it certainly is not defined by our biology. Me choosing to not have children does not diminish my worth as a woman, as a human being, as a contributor to society. And somebody being a parent and having children does not make them better than somebody who doesn't. It's a different choice.
Yeah.
It's just a different path. And thankfully, we're still in a position in the majority of this country where we can make that choice. And, knock on wood, that choice will not be taken away.
No, there's no knock on wood, Raquel. We're not fucking going back.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
not going back.
Not
Listen
back.
up, Texas. We're not
Yes.
fucking going back.
Yes. Amen. Amen.
Good talk. Bye, Raquel.
Bye, Jennifer. Thanks everyone for listening today. We will be back with more Madness Cafe next week. You can find us on Instagram at Madness Cafe Podcast or email us at madnesscafepodcast@gmail.com. Bye.